Nobody can point a finger at this man and say he does nothing. This man is responsible in one way or another for the British Constitution Group, the UK column newspaper, an organisation called Common Purpose Exposed, which is very much Brian's thing. He's become a major speaker and a regular speaker in Crane's Alternative View. And more recently, or at least in the last year, he's held 3 national lawful rebellion conferences calling for, literally, seriously, a lawful rebellion. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Mr. Brian Gerrish.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, well, first of all, thank you, all of you, for coming along to listen to me. I want to thank Malcolm and Inquiring Minds for all their efforts and the Royal Oak for hosting us tonight. But without these venues and the opportunity to speak, we don't get a message across. So thank you all very much for doing that. I'd like to also say thank you to Mike Robinson, who's standing over on my left. Mike gave up a life in the south of France to travel back to UK to work with myself and the team in Plymouth in order to help the paper go and grow, and also to fight for his country. And I think that took a lot of courage to give up sunshine in the south of France for Plymouth. But it just shows you that out there amongst us all are some brilliant people, and we need to find them. And this is what this evening is about, is can we get a message across, can we get a feel out for other people in the community who are worried about the state of the nation. Now, there's somebody else in the audience I'd like to thank, who's Robert Francis. And I'm trying to remember how many years ago, but I'd started to discover some strange things going on in the country. I tried desperately to get some people to listen to what I knew without much success. And eventually I passed some paperwork out, and unbeknown to me, that paperwork was given to Robert Francis. And he discussed it with a guy called Harry Beckoff. And then one Friday evening, I think it was, I got a phone call saying, "Are you Brian Gerrish?" And I said, "Yes." And I was invited to go to Marlborough. And I was quite suspicious at that stage because I'd been living an interesting life of threats and intimidation. And I wasn't too sure who the person speaking to me was, but he was very insistent that I should come and meet him and a friend. And when I drove to Marlborough a couple of days later, I met Robert Francis and Harry Beckoff, who I hope some of you have heard speak. And when I sat down with them and revealed what I knew, Harry Beckoff immediately said, "You've got a huge part of the jigsaw." So what I'm going to give you tonight is a little mixture of things that I know and have discovered. I've given talks on individual subjects. I've given talks on common purpose. Tonight, because I'm not quite sure where you all are, presumably some of you have heard some of the other talks that I've given, I'm trying to cover all of the ground and make it sensible for people who are going to see the videos. But I can only be here tonight because of the support that I've been given from people in the audience. Hi, John. So a big thank you from me. In about 3 years, I think it's roughly 3 years, I've now given over 110 talks at various venues. And we're getting responses from people across the world to what we're doing. So we know the message is going out. And what we need now is to find a way that more ordinary people are getting the message out themselves. We need to stop what is happening. And if we don't stop it, not only are we going to have a rotten life, but our children are not going to have any life. And I mean that as I'm saying it. They will not have any life. We've got the youngest member of the audience I've ever had at the back of the room, and I'm very grateful for that. So if it's not about ourselves, it's about our children and our grandchildren. Now, I have a problem because if I dress down, I can't possibly have ever been a naval officer. And if I dress up, then I must be a suit, not to be trusted. So tonight, because Malcolm beefed up the theme that I was in the Navy, and I did serve in the Navy for 21 years, I've gone for the full issue. So I've got a picture of one of my ships that I served in, HMS Sirius. This was back in about 1982-83, but I spent 21 years in the Navy. I left as a lieutenant commander. I was not a submariner, but my expertise was chasing, tracking, finding Russian submarines. And this is one of the ships that would have done it in the mid-1980s when we were still in the Cold War period. So a lot of my life was spent around there, working, eating, sleeping. You guys paid for it because I was paid out of taxpayers' money, and I had 21 brilliant years. But in the end, I started to see funny things happening. My last job was in command of an offshore protection vessel called HMS Orkney, and we patrolled particularly the North Sea and up the north, off the north coast of Scotland, looking after the fishing fleet, but also enforcing European fisheries policy. And I watched as our fishermen were treated as fifth-class citizens, and the European rules were applied in such a way that slowly but surely our fishing fleets were put out of business. And on one dark, stormy night off the Firth of Forth, I stopped a Scottish fishing boat. He had broken the rules because his net mesh was too small, and the instructions that I had from the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries and Food was that his net was to be confiscated. And when I explained to the captain of the little fishing boat this was going to happen, he swore at me repeatedly and very strongly. And he said to me that basically I was destroying his livelihood. And what I absolutely hated was I knew that man was correct. And that was one of the triggers that made me decide to leave the Navy, because I knew that even inside the Royal Navy, something nasty was at work. Now, what I'm going to talk about tonight is much broader, but I've given you a bit about me, and I have no regrets. I've been threatened, my family's been threatened. I now regularly mix with other people that are threatened and intimidated by the state. I have people asking if I'm worried that I'm going to be topped, and I say to them, but surely this is Britain and it's a democracy. And they say to me, well, you're into some heavy stuff. I'm not bothered. I am really not bothered, because if I don't fight now, I know that my children have not got a decent life. And this is the message I'm trying to get across to you. We've got to wake up. We've got to wake up very quickly and do some things. But why have we got to wake up? We need an alternative government, because I'm going to try and prove to you tonight that the government we've got is not only rotten and immoral, but it's now starting programs which almost defy belief, because I firmly believe, I know that we are heading towards programs such as eugenics, the selection of individuals. We are starting to see programs come into schools where the government is teaching children that some people are better than others, and if they get a bit too weak or infirm, they're going to be allowed to go. That's what the assisted suicide program is about. And as one of the papers reported a couple of days ago, this is how the Nazi program started.